So this woman hires a hitman to kill her husband, and then she's got to hire another hitman to kill that first hitman. Let me explain. Now, the woman's name is Mary Ellen, and Mary Ellen is about 39 when this story starts, and she's living in California, and Mary Ellen apparently really wants money, and she's willing to do terrible things to get it. In fact, she's currently going through a divorce, and one day in 1988, she comes up with a plan to have her soon-to-be ex-husband murdered so that she can collect the life insurance money, as well as take over sole ownership of the Subway store that they own, because I guess they own a Subway together. Now, the soon-to-be ex-husband she wants to murder is this guy, Bob. And Bob is actually a camera operator working in Hollywood. He's worked on movies like Beverly Hills Cop 2 and Short Circuit and The Color Purple. Regardless, Mary Ellen wants him dead. And in order to make that happen, she needs to hire a hitman. So she ends up approaching some guy that she knows, a shady drug dealer guy. And I guess she's like, "Will you please kill my soon-to-be ex-husband?" And shady drug dealer guy's like, "Why?" And she straight up tells him that it's for the insurance money and to own the Subway store. And shady drug dealer guy's like, "Nah." So that didn't work, and Mary Ellen has to try again. And she ends up approaching another sketchy guy, this guy, Jimmy. So Mary Ellen goes to Jimmy and she lies to him. She tells him that Bob is this terrible guy who's been inappropriately touching her daughter, aka Jimmy's girlfriend. Jimmy gets all pissed off, and Mary Ellen says that Bob needs to be assassinated, and she offers to pay Jimmy to do it. And that is when he decides he is going to kill Bob. One night, Jimmy goes over to Bob's place while he's still asleep, and he breaks in and he sneaks into Bob's bedroom where Bob is in bed. And suddenly, pow, he hits him with some blunt object and he knocks him out. And then, blam, he shoots him. And unfortunately, Bob doesn't survive. 2 days later, Mary Ellen goes over to where Bob is living, because, they're separated, and she pretends to discover Bob, and she's like, "Oh no, the horror!" And she calls the police. So now police start investigating, and they search Bob's place, and they immediately notice something weird. Nothing is missing, so nothing was stolen. So obviously, this wasn't a robbery gone wrong, this was a planned assassination. So now police are suspicious. And so they bring Mary Ellen into the station for questioning, and they immediately notice something is off about her. In fact, she shows up there in a low-cut shirt with her boobs all hanging out, acting flirty with the officers, making suggestive comments, and intentionally bending over. It seems like she's trying to seduce them into believing her. So police clear her and they let her go. Now, during this time, Mary Ellen collects the life insurance money that was signed up for Bob's death, which is around $500,000. And that's a lot of money, especially in the 80s. Plus, she now has sole ownership of the Subway store that they used to own. And so what does Mary Ellen do with all this new money she's got? She fucking spends it. She buys herself jewelry and fur coats and lingerie, and she takes trips to Las Vegas, and she rents a limousine just to go out to bars. She hires male strippers. She throws herself a huge birthday party. She buys herself a new Porsche. And so months pass since Bob was assassinated, and suddenly Mary Ellen starts acting weird. She's starting to get paranoid. She's worried that Jimmy might snitch on her, or even casually talk about their murder plot to a friend, and then that information might get back to police. So now she's thinking that Jimmy needs to die. So she meets up with yet another shady guy who was recommended through a friend. This shady guy is named Paul Gall. And so Mary Ellen meets with Paul Gall, and she lies to him too, and she tells him that this Jimmy guy has been harassing her and blackmailing her, and that she really needs him assassinated. And Paul Gall's just like, "Alright." Now, funny enough, Paul Gall is actually acquainted with Jimmy. I guess they had done some shady business together in the past. So Paul Gall hits him up, and he tells him that he knows some drug dealers in this nearby park, and that they should go and rob them. And Jimmy, he actually agrees to do it. Then Paul Gall and some goon he's with, they go and pick Jimmy up. So they're driving along to this park to do this robbery, and suddenly, out of nowhere, skirt, Paul Gall slams on the brakes, and he says, "Now!" And the goon in the back seat reaches forward, and he starts choking Jimmy, while Paul Gall jumps on him and holds him down. And together, they end up strangling him until he's no longer alive. Then they take his body and they dump it in a local canyon. So now all of Mary's problems should be solved. Bob is gone, she collected all his insurance money, and Jimmy, the only guy who could snitch on her, is also gone. And so all there is left for her to do is enjoy her new life and spend all her money. Until... Remember that shady drug dealer guy? The very first guy she approached to assassinate Bob? The guy who said, "Nah." Well, for some reason, that guy decides to talk. About 5 months after Bob's murder, he calls up the police and he tells them that if they want answers surrounding Bob's murder, they should really look into Jimmy. So police are on it. They go to this electronics store where Jimmy works and they're asking around for him. But Jimmy's boss is like, "I haven't seen Jimmy. He stopped showing up to work." Then the boss asks, "What's this all about?" And police are like, "Well, it's about Bob's murder." And the boss is like, "Yeah, well, he had been talking about how Bob deserved to die." So now police are sure that Jimmy is their guy. But they don't know he's dead. They actually think that he stopped showing up to work because he went on the run or something. Now, police know that Jimmy had been dating Mary Ellen's teenage daughter, so they want to question her about where Jimmy might be, because she's on vacation with her mother, Mary Ellen, in Cancun. I guess Mary Ellen is still out there spending all that insurance money. Now, eventually, they do both get back to California, and police try to question them, but they both refuse to cooperate now. So a few months go by. And then, one day, randomly, police get a call that some pedestrian found a body in a local canyon. That body is, of course, Jimmy's. And now that police know that he's dead, they go and search his apartment and they find a phone card, and eventually they find that he made calls to both Mary Ellen and her teenage daughter on the night of Bob's murder. So now they know Mary Ellen is involved in all this. So they start interrogating her friends, and one of her friends ends up snitching. And so police, they go and search Mary Ellen's house, and they find a nude picture that she took of herself covered in all of Bob's life insurance money. Bam, Mary Ellen is arrested. Here's her mugshot. Also, bam, Paul Gall is arrested. And I couldn't find any pictures of him. And so ultimately, Mary Ellen goes to trial and she's found guilty and she's sentenced to death, but later it's commuted to life without parole, while Paul Gall is sentenced to 15 years to life in prison.